Oh, hello everyone. Weeman V1 here, and I come to you this winter with Weeman's Winter of Wrestling. Why am I calling it that? Alliterations are fun! So, I decided this winter I was going to try something a little different. I'm playing all these wrestling games that I used to play as a kid. I'm just going through the ones that I've played, so I'm not going to be playing some of the ones on the Super Nintendo or anything like that, because I never had one. But to start things out, we have WWF Raw on the Sega Genesis. And we have a nice little rendition of the opening here. Oh, we'll get to that in a minute. But press start, you get right to the game. You can select up to 4 players, which is, something unheard of at the time. I was originally going to get a few guys to play this with me, but no one wanted to. Oh well, I can still do a couple one-player matches. Press C to select, press A to go back. I've never seen controls like that in a video game before. But anyway, WWF Raw, released in 1994 on the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo, and there was a version on the 32X, which is superior in just about every way, except it's on the 32X. You know, that's a problem in itself. I think there might have been a Sega CD version too, but I'm not too sure on that. Anyway, we have a series of 6 different matches here. One-on-one, which is, simple one-on-one matchup. Tag team, which is, simple 2-on-2 matchup. Bedlam, which is a 2-on-2 matchup with everyone in the ring at once. Survivor Series, which is your traditional 8-on-8 matchup. The Royal Rumble, I'll get into that one later because I will be playing a Royal Rumble. It's my favorite match in the WWE, WWF at the time, as you can see by the background. And the Raw Endurance match, which means it's basically another Survivor Series matchup, but just 12-on-12, or 12-on-12, 6-on-6. There's only 12 people in this game. So to start here, let's go into one-on-one, and we have 3 choices here. One Fall, which is a typical one-on-one match. Brawl, which is a one-on-one match with no disqualifications or anything, so anything goes. Do I want to do that one, or no, I'll just do a standard match. And Tournament. You should know what a tournament is. So we're going to start off with the One Fall, and I have to press C to start. Oh, you get to select your difficulty beforehand. I haven't played this game in years, by the way. I have lost my copy of the game. I still have the case, but the cover's missing, the instruction booklet's missing. So it's basically just a black case, and I think the only thing in there right now is my Toy Story game. So we're going to go difficulty 1, because I'm going to suck at this. CPU could choose my opponent, why not? So let's take a look at the roster here. Okay, so 1994, this would be the new generation of the WWF. And for those who aren't sure what that means, after Hulkamania, before Austin 316. This was during a time when a lot of the stars left the WWE, so we're missing Hulk Hogan, we're missing Ric Flair, we're missing Macho Man Randy Savage, and a lot of those guys left for WCW or other promotions. So a bunch of new guys came in, while most of the old guys were relegated to more jobber positions. Only a few guys really were up there. Bob Backlund I remember being a bit higher, but everyone here basically made their debut in the WWF in the 1990s. And we're starting off here with Yokozuna. Another thing about this game, I think at least half the wrestlers in it are dead. And I think Yokozuna, I'm not too sure on the causes. A lot of these people died before I really started getting into wrestling, because I kept up with it a little bit with my dad when I was a kid, because 1994 when this came out, I would have been 3 years old. But he was basically watching during the new generation, because I live in Calgary and we had Stampede Wrestling, and after Stampede Wrestling all those guys left there and went to WWF. Most of them did anyway. And that's where my dad knows wrestling from, and I'm more early 2000s, or early to mid 2000s was when I watched really hardcore, and then I stopped for a while, and I watch now, but I can't really sit through a whole episode of Monday Night Raw. I'm going to stop talking about how I watch wrestling now. I'll get into that when I'm in the match, because the matches probably aren't too exciting here. Yokozuna from Polynesia, even though Yokozuna's a Samoan, actually. He's part of the big Samoan family that included the Wild Samoans like Afa and Sika, Rikishi, and currently the Usos. The Rock is related to them too, actually, but not directly. But he's playing a sumo wrestler character, and Yokozuna was a big star in the '90s, early '90s. He was the WWF champion. I'm gonna have to get used to WWF WWE. At the time, he was the WWF champion. 1993, he won the Royal Rumble. And he was with the company till around 1996, I believe. And I think he died in 2000. I know he's dead now, but I think it was in the year 2000. And a lot of guys during this time in the 90s and the 80s, they were on drugs, they were drinking, they were getting coked up all the night, pilled up all the night, drunk. And it really ruined their lives. I'm not too sure about Yokozuna, but he really gained a lot of weight, and that's probably why he died. His special move is the bonsai drop. He basically just sits on you. Don't ask me how to do any of the special moves. I forget. The only ones I could ever pull off were the sharpshooter, and I think it's the same combo of buttons for every special move, but I can't remember them now. So moving on. Bret the Hitman Hart from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. This guy was arguably the biggest star during the new generation. The only guys that even come close to Bret Hart's popularity are Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. I would say in this game, overall, Bret Hart is my favorite to play as. When I was a kid, when me and my brother played this game, we didn't get it in 1994. We got it a little bit later, but I always played as... We always did the tag team matches. I always played as Bret Hart. He always played as Owen Hart. Bret Hart's still alive today. He doesn't wrestle anymore because, Goldberg kicked his head and gave him a concussion, and then he had a stroke, so he can't really wrestle anymore. It's not a matter of he doesn't want to. I mean, he is old. He's like 57 now. Yeah, let that sink in. But Bret Hart is easily the biggest wrestler to ever come out of Canada. And he's probably one of the biggest things to come out of Calgary. The Hart Family of Wrestling is one of the biggest families in wrestling, and they come right out of my hometown. Now, Bret and Owen are the only ones who really made it anywhere in the WWE. I mean, I guess Keith and Bruce and all them were before the WWE. Bret's my favorite. His special move is the sharpshooter, a submission move that targets the legs and the back. Innovated in Japan, brought to America by Sting, and made famous by Bret Hart. I'm probably going to be playing all my matches as Bret because he's my favorite. Next, The Undertaker from Death Valley at the time. He's still from Death Valley now. Technically. He's actually from Texas. This was a big monster of a guy. He debuted in 1991, and I think it was 1991, might have been 1990. He became a big deal really quick, because he was a big guy. Like, right there you can see it, 328 pounds, 6'10", he was huge. And they pushed him as some monster. He is the only guy in this game who is still employed by the WWE today and still wrestles. Not actively, only part-time, but he still wrestles. I might be eating my words a little bit down the line here. I forget who's all in this game. I just know it's 12 people, and I only remember a few of them. But The Undertaker still does actively wrestle. And I mean, that means he's been wrestling in the WWE for 22 years. And he was wrestling before that. I mean, I remember seeing videos of him in Japan and WCW. So, he's an old guy, but he still puts on some great matches. Special move is the Tombstone Pile Driver, which is a reverse pile driver, or reverse kneeling pile driver, and it's a very safe version of the pile driver, because that move is actually banned in the WWE right now because people kept breaking people's necks with it. Owen Hart broke Stone Cold Steve Austin's neck with a reverse pile driver. Next, Luna Vachon, who I believe is the niece of Mad Dog Vachon. I don't know, they're both dead now. Mad Dog Vachon died only a couple months ago. He lived a nice, healthy, long life, 82. One of the toughest guys in the business. I was watching something, Bobby Heenan telling stories about him, and for those who don't know, Bobby the Brain Heenan was a big deal manager and commentator throughout the 80s and 90s. Not so much now. He's had troubles with throat cancer, and he doesn't look very good. It's really sad to see him in the shape he's in now, but he beat it. The Brain beat it. So, the best thing to note about Luna Vachon, she's a woman. And I don't think there was a woman playable in a wrestling game before her. She's a tough woman. I don't know a lot about her, I just know that she's in this game. So there's not much I can comment on. So next, Bam Bigelow. This guy was a really big guy who was really agile. He could really move in the ring, and you don't get guys like that very often. You got Bam Bigelow, you got Vader, these guys pulling off moonsaults, which are backflips from the top rope. And I mean, Bam Bam's 360 pounds, so he's not a small guy. I don't know much about him. I know he's dead. I think it was a drug overdose that got him. He wasn't a very bad guy, though. He was a nice guy. He had a really cool look, though. I mean, you can see the big flame vest shirt thing he's got, and you can't really see it in here, but on his head he has a big flame tattoo. He's bald and he has this big flame tattoo all over his head. It's really cool to look at. Special move, diving headbutt. I hate that move. I just hate that. That has fucked up so many wrestlers' lives. It's really sad. I mean, Harley Race invented it. He wishes he never did. Dynamite Kid used it. He's in a wheelchair now. Chris Benoit used it. He killed his family. Daniel Bryan's using it now, and I really hate to see people use this diving headbutt. It is not a safe move. It's just going to hurt your head and spine. And if you do it incorrectly, you're going to get a concussion. And that's why Chris Benoit got so screwed up, because he kept getting concussions. Concussion after concussion, because when he was practicing the move, he would just do it off the top rope, hit his head on the map, knock himself out. And this was back when he was training in Stampede Wrestling. I forget which Hart said it. It was Keith, maybe? I don't know. Don't like that move. Although I do think Bam Bam does a bit safer of one, instead of the one with the arms out where you're just doing a suicide dive. Razor Ramon. This is another of my favorite guys, another kind of a tragic case. He's not dead. He's quite alive, but when it comes to drugs and alcohol, Razor Ramon, aka Scott Hall, if you watch WCW or later WWE, or AWA. Anyway, Razor Ramon, he was a really sad case. He was getting drugged up all the time, pilled up, cocaine, all kinds of bad crap. And it was really screwing up his life, him and Jake Roberts. And it's really nice to see that they're really starting to come along now. Diamond Dallas Page, big star in WCW, fixed their lives, pretty much. Anyway, Razor Ramon was a big guy, and a really talented guy, too. He was one of my favorite wrestlers, or he's come to be one of my favorite wrestlers recently. I've seen footage of him in the old AWA, facing, or teaming with Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. And I mean, he was a big, tall guy. He played the Razor Ramon gimmick really well, because, you know, it's basically he's being Scarface. Anyway, his special move is the Razor's Edge, which is a crucifix powerbomb. It means he lifts him up over his head, holds him by the arms, and slams him down. Next, Lex Luger. And that is really not Lex Luger's music. This must have been when he was becoming the All-American. I don't know a lot about Lex, I just know that they were trying to push him as the next Hulk Hogan. It didn't work. He was a big guy and he was in good shape. He was definitely a bigger star in WCW after the WWE, though. I'm getting off here, this music is ridiculous. The 1-2-3 Kid. For those who don't know, the 1-2-3 Kid eventually went on to become XPac in the WWE. And everyone hates XPac. But 1-2-3 Kid, he started off as a jobber, and then he suddenly gets this miraculous win over Razor Ramon, and that's how he becomes the 1-2-3 Kid, because he beat him 1-2-3, because, you know, pinfalls, you gotta pin a guy for 3 seconds. I Don't know a lot about him otherwise. I don't know if he ever used the moonsault as a finisher. I always remember a spinning kick, but I remember XPac more than the 1-2-3 Kid. Moving on. Doink the Clown. He is a clown, he is a wrestler. What else is there to say? Whoopee Cushion, I believe, was a seated senton. That was his finishing move. And Doink's been played by a lot of people over the years. The original guy, though, Matt Bourne, is dead. He died earlier this year, too, actually. So, death count so far. Yokozuna, Luna Vachon, Bam Bigelow, Doink the Clown. That's 6 guys. Diesel. Kevin Nash, Big Daddy Cool. This guy was huge, and I mean, like, he was taller than The Undertaker, as we can see, near 7 feet. And he was a big guy. He wasn't a very great wrestler. I mean, if you want to talk 5 moves of doom, all you John Cena haters, Kevin Nash only did 5 moves. maybe 7, if you want to push it. That said, he just looks so cool that I always liked him. I mean, back in those days, when I was first starting to get into wrestling, look meant a whole lot. Diesel was cool. His special move is a jackknife, which is just a standard release powerbomb. Nothing to say. He still wrestles occasionally. He's still huge. Kind of a prick. Shawn Michaels. Another one of the biggest stars during the new generation of the WWE. This was the first guy to go from #1 in the Royal Rumble, last the whole matchup, and win it. The only other guy who did that was Chris Benoit. Although there's been 2 people who have won from the #2 position, which is basically the same thing. Those are Rey Mysterio and, believe it or not, Mr. McMahon. So Shawn Michaels here, he would have been fresh off, not fresh off, if the Rockers broke up earlier than I remembered, but he used to be a tag team competitor, and then he became a big name, a main eventer. He was one of the first really small guys to become a big name, and you know, Shawn Michaels could do it all. He was flashy, he could wrestle well, he could talk well, but he was the biggest crybaby in the back. Biggest crybaby. Oh man, he smartened up now. He's a born-again Christian, if I recall right, but man, if this guy didn't get his way, he was going to make a scene. Him and Bret Hart didn't get along very well at all, and you know, most wrestling fans know the Montreal Screwjob that happened, and the thing I hate now is I see a lot of people saying, oh yeah, Bret Hart was this big crybaby, and you know, I'll admit, Bret Hart was a bit of a prima donna during that time, but for the longest time, he was the company's biggest draw. He had a right to be. Shawn Michaels was just a little prick who got everything handed to him. And I mean, yeah, he did have talent, and he does still have talent and all that. I can't deny that. It's just, maybe it's the Canadian in me, and maybe it's the Calgarian. I know they've made up, but I still think it was a bad thing to do. I mean, I blame Vince for it more than I do Shawn. But it still wasn't the right thing to do. They could have avoided it completely. Bret just didn't want to drop the title to Shawn Michaels. He would have dropped it to anyone else. And especially not in Canada. Moving on, I believe this is number 12 here, but Owen Hart. And Owen Hart's a sad case because he died in 1999. Not from drugs, not from natural causes. He is a very rare case of a wrestler dying on TV. Not on TV, on pay-per-view, but still, it was a very... I can't even imagine what those people watching live, I mean, the people watching at home, they managed to cut the broadcast because the broadcast is on a 5-second delay, I think, but the people watching live, it had to be such a shock to watch him fall 50 feet from the rafters, bounce off the ropes, and land in the ring. Oh, I can't even imagine it. But Owen Hart, the youngest of the Hart family to get into wrestling, and I mean, there's no real Harts in the WWE now. I mean, there isn't Natalya, who is Jim Neidhart's daughter, and Jim Neidhart did marry one of the Harts. But Owen Hart was the last one to go by the Hart name. And he was good. Like, Bret was the better technician, but Owen Hart was a better package in general. And I just got a message here, so I will hurry this up with all the talk here, and then I will come back. Owen Hart, great guy. His finishing move was the sharpshooter and the reverse pile driver, as I've said. This was always one of my brother's favorite wrestlers. In this game, I always played as Bret or Diesel. My brother always played as Owen or the 1-2-3 Kid. Anyway, when I come back, I'm going to get into a match here. And it's going to be a one-on-one match, me as Bret Hart versus whoever the computer decides to pick. And I will talk about the gameplay, because it's been a while since I've actually played this game. So I will see you guys shortly.